Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be able to have Lo Baker here with me today. And Lo's story is just going to absolutely blow your mind on everything that the ketogenic low carb diet can do for somebody who's been struggling for years with weight and health problems. But we're going to get Lo to tell you more about that because she is the star of the show today. So, Lo, welcome today. It's wonderful to have you here. Please tell us a little bit more about where you're from, what you do, those kinds of things.
Sure. Lo Baker, I live in New Hampshire, and I cannot remember ever being thin. Even as a child, I grew up in a family where more was better, and we'd have a family of two parents and four children. My mother would cook 12 potatoes and didn't want leftovers. And so we really learned how to eat in quantity. And I remember being a little girl in elementary school, and they used to bring you into the school and the gymnasium and weigh everybody. And I was the heaviest kid in school, and it was so humiliating in front of everybody. So everybody could see that. So I just have no memory of not being heavy.
Yeah, that's really a
And
powerful and distressing memory, even from way back when,
yeah,
for sure,
yeah.
for sure. So tell us a little bit more about your sort of getting through to your childhood. And I'm going to share my screen because I've got a photograph of you when you were 21 years old. And can you tell us a little bit more about kind of where you were at in your life at that point?
Yep, 21 years old. I love animals. I've always been involved with dogs, and I loved showing dogs. And um, I remember that day in particular that it was very hard for me to get down on my knees to do that. And you have to run around the ring with your dog and it was difficult for me to be able to do that. And it got to a point where I had to stop because I couldn't run around or get down on my knees anymore to be able to do that. So it took away my passion of, being able to do what I loved.
Absolutely, absolutely. So have you so you're a dog trainer?
Yes.
All righty. And have you done this ever since this age at 21? Is that where you began?
Yep. I started even younger. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to dog grooming school. So I've always been around, dealt with animals.
Yeah.
And now I'm a dog agility instructor, which that is obstacles that the dogs go through. And it's more of an athletic thing. But even as heavy as I am, I used to show my own dogs. And then I got to the point where I couldn't even show my own dogs. So I had to have my friends do it for me because I just couldn't physically do it. But I could
All right.
train. I was able to train them, but
Mhm.
couldn't do the actual running of it.
So if you had to take a look at yourself health-wise, obviously the weight came on and all of those things came along, but health-wise, where did that put you? What were you struggling with back then?
I would say I remember being 18 years old, and my sister was going to be getting married to a doctor. And I remember him doing everybody in the family's blood pressure. And at 18 years old, I had the highest blood pressure in the family. And
Whoa.
and I was like, wow. But of course, like nothing became of it and never went to the doctors about it. And it wasn't until 30 years old that I started blood pressure medicine. And I got to the point where I was on four different blood pressure medicines. But
Wow.
clearly at 18, there was an issue.
Absolutely. And nobody picked that up.
No, isn't that crazy?
Absolutely. It's just, yeah,
Yes.
that the mind boggles. Absolutely. So,
And I haven't a reason why I might have a reason. Well, I think I know what happened was
mhm.
not until I was 59 years old was I diagnosed with sleep apnea. So I back then at 18, I had a sleeping issue. So I'm sure that did not help with the high blood pressure and the weight gain and everything.
Absolutely, because sleep apnea has such a profound effect on that. And so many people don't even realize that they have sleep apnea
No, I
and
lived with
what an
it all
effect
those
that
years.
has. Absolutely. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to flick back to some photographs of you in your later years. So once again, let me just quickly share my screen. What I'm going to do first of all is with your dog training, I'd love to share a YouTube clip of you training your dog. And once we've gone through the little bit of a clip, can you tell us about what was going on there for you? What was going through your head at the time, etc.? So I'm just going to run that for just a few moments and then move it
Sure.
ahead slightly, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Why he's on leash is to preventing the leaping out. So I want him to learn you've got to stay in, no leaping out with the pressure. You could go forward and have your hand right behind your bum. Wait, come here, handsome. Good. So I'm going to let him get us. I'm too crippled. Good.
Right. Interesting. Your comment there saying I am too crippled, not being
Yep.
able to move forward. So
Right. I should have been able to go faster, but I couldn't because I couldn't even move. Couldn't bend my knees. I couldn't do anything.
Absolutely. So let's run it forward slightly, and you're in a slightly different position then.
You would say, okay, you can shut that off because now.
Okay, so the poles are moved in just halfway, only on one side.
So we're only closing down one side at a time. It makes it a lot easier. Thank you, Ashley.
Right, and I'm going to stop it there. So tell me a little bit about that.
I think that was only 3 minutes in and I was utterly exhausted. I couldn't stand anymore and hold my dog. So I had to sit down to do the rest of the training. I was in pain. My knees were killing, my feet. And I remember that day. It was a few years ago. And it was exhausting. I was in so much pain. And even my breath, I couldn't even talk. It was hard for me to even talk because I was out of breath.
Absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit, perhaps even to the same time. Again, I will share my screen and go back onto the photographs as we sort of travel through some of your years. So after 21, more or less, where were you at this age?
That's about 5 years ago. So I'm 61.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's with my sister. And we went to this beautiful butterfly place. So you're in this atrium just full of butterflies. And the funny thing is I went there just this couple months ago and sat on that same bench. And I want to go back with my sister and take a new picture on that same bench.
Oh,
But
heck yeah.
I had to sit where my whole family was all walking around and I could not walk around. I had to sit the whole time and wait for the butterflies to hopefully come to me.
Oh, absolutely. So you really miss out on the things in life?
Oh, 100%. I didn't go to family gatherings because, of course, I hated the way I look. And I just pretty much stayed home. I didn't involve myself in anything. It was just me and my dogs and stayed home.
Were any of the alarm bells around your health going off at this time? Were there any concerns from your doctor, for instance, or even within yourself?
Obviously I did go to the doctor every year. And of course she would tell me, you need to lose weight, check my blood pressure and put me on yet another pill because it wasn't being managed. And I think my, pre-diabetic, she would just tell me and I'm like, yeah. And of course I needed to do something. I knew I was morbidly obese, but it just didn't happen. And I don't know how I could be comfortable, I should say, but not comfortable living in my skin like that, knowing I was getting closer to death every day. I remember going to bed at night going, well, I hope I wake up in the morning.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a big thought. That is a really, really big, that's a big thought.
Yeah.
So going on a little further, here was a very interesting point in your life, and it wasn't that long ago.
Right. Yep. A few years ago, a couple of years ago. Yep.
A few years ago. And I really want to know, Lo, what brought you to changing things? What happened? What was that pivotal moment? Because everybody has that point where you decide, this is it. What was that moment for you?
I remember thinking COVID saved my life because I knew at over 400 pounds, because I stopped weighing myself at 400 pounds because I didn't even want to see that number. I knew if I got COVID, I was going to die. There was no way I was going to survive that because I had everything going wrong. I had everything, all the problems. So So COVID started in March, and I think I binged and went to drive-throughs and through August.
Ah,
So
let's just back that up for a second. So
yep.
what did a typical day look like for you? Are you a cook? Do you like to cook, or what did it look
Yeah, but
like
of
back
course,
then?
we had like the whole fear was put into you. So I didn't go to a grocery store. I had groceries delivered. I would call in at restaurants and go to and have them and pick up my order. I would go to a drive-through and come home and, obviously eat it alone. But I kind of binged and I do. So that was like March. And I remember August of that year. I would wake up and I was very, very dizzy and really blurred vision. And I'm like, oh no, this is diabetes. It's gotten really bad. And I happen to have a doctor's appointment 2 days later. So I went to the doctor and right there in the office, she did my my A1C was over 13. And she was like, you need to be hospitalized. I go, no, I promise. Because I used to say this every year, I'll lose weight, I'll lose weight. And I knew that was definitely my turning point. And it took me 58 years, but finally at 58, I finally, and from that day forward, my life has changed.
That's incredible. So it tells you it's never too late. It's just never too late.
Yep.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
true.
I'm sorry. I'm saying wow a lot, but it really is a wow
It is a
story.
wow story.
It's a wow story. So taking a look at some of the problems that you have as somebody who is diabetic, desperately unhealthy, struggling to breathe, sleep apnea, diabetes. I imagine your blood results must have been in a fair amount of
Oh,
chaos.
yes. They were beyond chaos. It was all the numbers were off the charts in the red and,
Okay.
not healthy.
So tell us a little bit about this. What's
So
this all
this
about?
is a really ugly ankle. You wouldn't even know there's an ankle in there, but there is. And first of all, in the shower, I could barely reach over to wash myself. So this is probably due to obviously my diabetes and all the inflammation and not being able to scrub and clean because I couldn't even bend over in the shower, of a very sick body, of an ankle, if you could believe it or not.
Okay, well, there's a beautiful progression.
So
There's
I started working on myself, and so I was able to reach a little more and scrub it, and things started to improve. And it was hard for me to even take these pictures, to bend over to be able to get these pictures.
absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit more in a while just about
Okay.
how we got to all this wonderful improvement. But let's just go a
Sure.
little further. So here's looking a heck of a lot better. Can you give us an idea of the time span between sort of that first picture and where this was?
I'm
Ish,
guessing maybe a year. Maybe
Okay.
not quite a year in. Yeah.
All righty. Okay. So, and we are here today.
Yeah. It's still a thick ankle, but it doesn't look like it did before. That's for sure.
Nothing like that ankle there. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely right down. Beautiful, clear skin. Just rosy skin, not gray and tired looking, inflammatory looking. So none of those things, which is just, again, I really have to stop saying wow, but it's it's just incredible. Okay, so the question is, what did you do? What did you do? And where did you even begin? Because I think when your mindset is just steeped into that dark space where you're going through the motions of every day and you're just struggling to get through. And as you said, I'm just praying, will I wake up? Am I going to wake up tomorrow? And you're in that space. What changed and how did you change? Where did it begin?
So the crazy thing is, believe it or not, thinking how much I abused my body. I'm an all natural kind of gal, and I wouldn't think of giving my dog chemicals or anything like, because I'm so into the dog. So I seeked out a naturopath to help me in this journey for myself. And so I started working with her, and she got me started. But unfortunately, it was all wrong, as I've learned on my journey. It was low fat, low carb, cutting calories. And I have to say, the first 150 pounds off was pure willpower. I was starving. I had absolutely no energy. I couldn't lift my arms to fold clothes or do the dishes, but I knew I didn't want to be that 400-pound person with diabetes and blurred vision. So
Absolutely. So
it truly
that
was,
kept you going.
it did keep me going. And I vowed I was never going to be that person. But I got to tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. And I mean, I remember there are times I might have only had, 2 bites of lean chicken with no fat and, a tiny, tiny little pieces of spinach. And that would be it for the day. And I had nothing to give, nothing at all. And she would put me on electrolytes, but I knew something was not right. She kept doing blood work and, some levels were improving, but I knew I didn't feel good. So I started, the old YouTube thing, and I started doing some research and like, why would I feel fatigued? And I happened to find Dr. Berry first
Yep.
and watch
This is
some of his.
Dr. Ken Berry.
Dr. Ken Berry. Yep.
Yep.
So I watched a few of his and like, oh, that's interesting because he's carnivore and I used to be a vegetarian years and years back.
That
So,
must have been quite challenging going right
yeah,
from
I
plants
mean,
right
I'm
through
an
to
animal
meat.
lover and, thinking about animals. I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat animals. But then that stopped because of course that was, oh, I don't eat animals, but I eat pasta and I eat all the other stuff that, was the opposite of animal. And that didn't help me at all. And I remember even then that I didn't feel very well as a vegetarian and my hair was falling out and other things. So I knew that wasn't working for me either. So,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely an addictive personality. Love my carbs, not the sweets, but more of the starches was the way, like potato chips and, stuff like that.
All right,
So,
before you go on, I'm going to interrupt you there for just a second because that's a really important thing that you said there is I love my carbs. And in that picture that you shared of being at 400 pounds, one of the big words you wrote there was carb addict. But the highly addictive nature of carbohydrates is just, well, I was reading a little blurb the other day, which just said it's more addictive than cocaine. And we've just never thought that. And we are surrounded by this drug of choice. We're just it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. So
Yes.
I know now with my addictive personality,
Mm-hmm.
like some people, like I have a friend who's very thin. She eats garbage, but like she lives on sugar, but she's thin. And she goes, it's all in moderation. I am not that person. I can't say, oh, just let me have one taste. Because no, it'll be the whole bag. So for me, I have to have none of it or else it doesn't work for me.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So back to Dr. Ken Berry. So you started with Ken Berry and then what happened?
That got me down the loop. So I started watching a lot of different YouTubes and that brought me to, I saw an interview with him with Dr. Boz. And so I looked her up and I really loved the science that she taught. Because it wasn't just, oh, eat beef, bacon, and butter. It was, I loved how she explained the science. And there was things that I could do that I could see myself with. I knew about what meters meant because being diabetic, I knew how to check my blood glucose, but I never knew the word ketone. And so learning that from Dr. Boz. So that really got me on the path of fat, where my naturopath, I was on no fat. And then as soon as I started eating the fat and doing more of that, I started really feeling much better. I had energy again and I wanted to move because I think the first 150 pounds, I still wasn't moving. I was still sitting in a chair and because I had no energy, I had nothing to give. And I mean, my days were truly, I would get up to eat and go to the bathroom. And other than that, I was sitting in a chair. That's all I did. And life is very different now.
Oh, absolutely. So the journey began. The journey began, and here we get started. and we were here.
Yep.
And sometime later, we are here. So tell us a little bit about this picture.
So that's about halfway in my journey, I think. So I think I started in August, and I think this is June, if I remember correctly, of the following year. So just about a year in, still not exercising, but feeling a lot better. That's for sure. So obviously you can
Absolutely.
see in my neck, I still, very thick and, but a lot smaller than I was. This
All
was last
right.
summer. Yep.
Amazing. So last summer, which is obviously because you're in the Northern Hemisphere, so we're down here in New Zealand. So mid-year,
Yes.
June, July.
That was the end of July 31st, my mom's birthday.
Oh, I really have to stop saying wow. I'm sorry.
My mom passed away, and my three sisters all got together. And on my mom's birthday, I was able to walk sunflower fields. And there was no way I could do that ever in the past.
That is incredible. What a special, special memory to be able to create with your sisters and being in the position to do so.
Yes, that's for sure. It was very special.
You just have a healthy glow to your face. You are just, you just look so much different. So health-wise, what changed for you over that period? So after the naturopath and you were doing this sort of low-fat, traditional type way of eating, way of living, and then you just pivot and you change everything and you go into a ketogenic diet, which is high fat, or healthy high fat, proteins, carbs down to as low as you can go. And then you're here in this gorgeous picture. So what changed? What changed health-wise?
Obviously, what I was eating changed. In this picture, still, I was still eating too much protein. For me, because I was thinking, you can't eat enough beef, and every single thing would be, let me have a prime rib, and I would still eat a pound of bacon in one sitting. But so that's still because I'm like, it's fat, and it's but still more of that addictive personality where that it's way too much, and but I was getting results, but not then I would certainly go into a stall, and I remember for over 6 months being, at this weight here and at a stall. And so then I started adding some other things with the stall.
All righty. Now that is an interesting concept because a lot of people get to this point in a journey and their weight does stall. And that is what I love about Dr. Boz's teachings is she has this idea that keto is not just a one simple rule, do X and the rest will follow. Because our bodies reach that set point, which it does, because when you're doing the same thing every time, it gets used to where you're at and it kind of settles in that space. So what did you do to go from, you've changed into high fat, you're keeping your carbs low, having the protein, and then where did you head to from there? Because you were moving towards stressing your metabolism a little bit more. And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so because now I had the energy because of the higher fat, I really wanted to start moving a lot more. And so one of my Dogagillion students, who's a friend, happened to be a Pilates instructor. And I remember years earlier, before COVID, I said, how much do you have to weigh to go onto your Pilates machine? And I was too heavy to be on the machine. And then of course that's just like, oh, so then of course I just kept eating. And so then I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm light enough to be on her machine, I won't break her machine. And so I said, all right, I'm going to start doing Pilates. And I trusted her. It was a private in her home because and this was still during COVID time. So we were wearing masks and stuff, but she got me starting to move. And I loved it. I just absolutely just felt stronger and stronger and stronger. So
I just have to share. Let me share this picture. Let me share this picture of you and where you're at. And what were you able to do here that perhaps you haven't been able to do before that? Where were you?
Oh my goodness. So I think it's been since I was maybe 30 or so, over 30 years ago, where I can even get on the ground. I haven't been on the ground in over 30 years. So for me to even get down there was huge. And there's a thing underneath my back, you can't see it, but it's called an oove, and it has a curve. So I'm on this thing that's very unbalanced. And so it's all about core strength. And so the only thing holding me down is one foot, and I have to stabilize my core so I don't fall off that oof thing. So that's a tricky move.
And then you still have TheraBand around your hips.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
arms off the ground.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I'm not sure if I can do that. This is incredible. Wow. So you were obviously working with her, trusting her to take you on your journey and getting more, having more mobility and just doing so much better. And I would just
I truly believe it's because I had the energy because of the extra fat.
this is where you
Yep.
are today. And
Yeah, this was this month.
and this is such a happy picture. So please tell us where you're at, what are you doing? And I know that you had this particular grin on your face for a very specific reason. So can you tell us what was going on here?
Well, my sister and I drove up to go visit my other sister. This is in New Hampshire, and she's about 2.5 hours north of me. And I haven't been to my sister's house in over 30 years. It's crazy. She would always be the one driving down. So I couldn't move. I couldn't go up there. And so now to think I was driving to my sister's house to go snowshoeing is insane. I've never had snowshoes on in my life. And at 60 years old, I'm now snowshoeing with my sisters.
Amazing. Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, I was just thinking, so just coming back to taking a look at how this journey began, the things that changed for you, there's a lot of mindset going on with all of this. If you have to think back to where you were, where you are now, and I know I keep asking this question, what has changed? What has changed? Because you have to change along this journey in order for it to work. There needs to be an openness, a curiosity, a willingness to go into places that you've never been before with your health, with your thoughts, physically into areas that you never thought that you would conquer. And here you are snowshoeing, where previously you had to sit down in that video where you're training that dog. And so the question in all of that is, what has changed for you mentally?
Oh, it's just a completely different mindset. I am no longer controlled by food. It's there's this thing that people ask me because they've seen my transformation, and they go, "Oh, can you have that? Can you have that? Is that on your diet?" And I said I can have whatever I want, but I choose to eat what's healthy for myself. So it's not like, can you have that? This is what I'm choosing to do for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a very strong why.
I was about to ask you that.
Okay. Why? Because the mental part is huge of this. And I do have an addictive personality. My family is very addictive family. I have a brother who was a heroin addict that passed away. And seeing my parents suffer through the loss of a child. And then I lost both my parents pretty close together. So now it's just me and my sisters. And when I would go to bed at night saying, I hope I wake up, my why is I could cry right now thinking of my sisters having to deal with dealing with me and a 400-pound body. And you just can't go to a crematorium with a 400-pound body. Like, to have them have to deal with that after they dealt with the loss of a brother and 2 parents. Mm-hmm. So it was more for my sisters not having to deal with more death. Sorry.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, because this is when you are in the position that you're in and the journey that you've had and all the things that have happened in your life, it is nearly all emotional. I would really contend that yes, addiction is a big part of things, but that emotional roller coaster that you experience and the way you take comfort from food, from hiding, from doing those things that you feel will keep you safe. That brings me to a question. What would you have wanted to hear from someone?
Oh, that's so hard, because I think until you're ready to hear it, you don't hear it. Because you got to, I heard it every year from my doctor. You need to eat less. You got to exercise, but I really feel like until you have your own why until you're truly there, ready. I mean, death certainly scared me, and I didn't want my sisters to deal with this mess. And I guess I'd like to say it can be done. I mean, I was there, and I'm living proof that it can be done.
You most certainly are living proof that it can be done. I'm sure that your why, they do not have to deal with a 400-pound person anymore. So why's change? What keeps you going? What keeps you motivated now? Yeah.
I have a life. I have a life. My sister and I, we plan on, well, it's this funny thing. So I started a new challenge for myself in February. And every day in February, I was going to go up a flight of stairs and add on every day. So February 1st, I did 1 flight. February 2nd, 2 flights. So today's the 17th, and I did 17 flights of stairs, in addition to my Pilates and hiking with my dog and all that stuff. So now my sisters are doing it, and we call ourselves the stepsisters. So, and then now we're saying we're going to travel the world and go over all the famous flights of stairs. And, we're going to run up the stairs from where the Rocky movie was, and in Europe and all over the place. So that's our goal, is to travel the world and go up and down flights of stairs, where I could never fit in a plane before. I had to buy 2 seats and, have an extended seatbelt. And so now I'm like, I'm going to travel the world. Very
Oh,
excited.
that's an incredible goal to have, or something that you're moving towards, and it's something that is so achievable. So achievable. You have to start a YouTube channel or an Instagram page. The stepsisters, the step, just stepsisters.
Yeah. And then my sister was telling, she goes, the wicked stepsisters.
Excellent. Oh my goodness. All right. Now, one last question. How has your self-talk changed between where you were at and where you are now?
Well, before, the voice in my head was, all right, if I can hit McDonald's, I can also hit Wendy's and the drive-through. And now when I'm driving, I don't even look at them. It doesn't even cross my mind. So it's so weird how the self dialogue in your head totally changes of what that little voice is saying. And so now it's like, all right, well, if I do my steps now, and then I can make it over to Pilates, and then I can take my dog for a hike, and I got to drink my water. And I do plan out what I'm going to eat, so I'm prepared and not ever have to be in the oh, what am I going to get, and never want to have to get to that. Oh, I'm going to, get something. I feel like I'm so far past that point that it'll never happen. But I do prepare. So if I am going to go someplace, I bring my own meals, so I don't even have to worry about what's in things. And I'm very comfortable doing that. So I think about me and doing what's best for me as far as the dialogue, and rather than, I know that's a hard one to answer.
No, you've answered it beautifully. And that also has brought me to so what are the steps for success? And the first one you mentioned there was being prepared, 100% being prepared, which is fantastic, because that is the mainstay of all of this. Because if you're not prepared, you end up heading down the wrong path and grabbing whatever is available to eat. So your secrets to success, one, being prepared. Are there others that you can think of on your sort of daily journey or weekly journey that you feel really supports the way that you live?
100%. The Zoom meetings, especially with your group, I love so much, and they're instrumental. I remember my very first Zoom meeting that you got through Dr. Boz's Neurons page. Of course, the camera was off and I didn't speak, and I just listened, because I'm like, oh, I'm so shy, I don't want to do this. And so I'd listen and listen. And I think one time I put my camera on, and then and then I raised my hand like, I'll talk. And now I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So, so I'm usually the first one to chat. And now I look forward to them every week.
So community and a support from like-minded people.
100%. Nobody in my family is doing this. None of my friends. I am the only one that I know in my area of my circle that is doing this. And it's not like I don't have support, but they're not asking questions like, how you doing it? And so I'm not gonna, my close family knows what I'm doing and they're supportive, but they're not joining in, which is a-okay with me. And so it's so nice to talk to like-minded people in groups where you have support and listen to everybody's story.
Absolutely, because walking hand in hand with others that really understand intimately the challenges of
Yes.
sometimes of living this way, the social constraints that you have, the questions of when you're in the supermarket, what do I pick up? It can be really challenging. And if you have no one to ask, you end up slipping down that slippery slope and it's okay, I'll just start tomorrow again, or just pick it up
Yep.
again tomorrow, or whatever it might be. And it really supports you and gives you that motivation that when you have to check in again next week, you've got some really awesome stuff to share. Or
Yes.
your challenges. It doesn't always have to be the good things. It's often talking about the challenges and the places that you might have fallen off or stepped outside of the path a wee bit, of how to help yourself the next time that happens.
Yep, for sure.
Which brings me to the idea of guilt, of dealing with the guilt. And I love that you said, food does not control me anymore. I'm thinking about going to Pilates, taking my dog for a walk, and not, where can I avoid the drive-throughs, or where can I hit a drive-through that I'll just get a coffee. I'm not going to get anything else. I'll just get a coffee, or whatever it might be. Do you still struggle with that at all?
No, I really don't. I mean, I remember going to my my niece's birthday party, and it was a big pizza party, and I didn't even, the smell, it didn't even faze me. Like, oh, I really want a piece of that. It's like, I feel being unhealthy my whole life and feeling miserable. Feeling good feels way better than that pizza is going to taste. So it doesn't even cross my mind to want a piece of it.
That's fantastic. That really is. That's incredible. It's a very freeing space to be in.
It really is.
Mentally freeing. You're not weighed down by those constant thoughts, those ones
No.
that I remember earlier on in my journey, I was living from meal to meal. What am I going to have? What am I going to have at lunch? What am I going to have for afternoon tea? What am I having for dinner? What am I having after dinner? And it's all consuming. I found it all consuming. And I'm sure you were in a similar position, feeling the same sort of
100%.
way.
Every time I got in the car,
Yeah.
where am I going to stop and get something to eat?
Yeah, yeah. All right, Lo. Thank you so much for sharing this
You're very
incredible
welcome.
journey.
Thank you for all of your help also. You've been instrumental, and I just love our group.
That is amazing to hear. Now, one thing, believe it or not, and I'm taking this one at the end, you're not 100% keto anymore. Well, keto in a manner of speaking, you're somewhat on the further end of things. Can you tell me a little bit more of that before we bring this to a close?
As far as being is mostly carnivore?
Food, yes, exactly, because the
Yes.
word carnivore freaks people out and really gets them
I'd
going,
rather
you're
say
crazy.
as close to zero carb as possible.
Okay.
And to be as close to zero carb as possible, you're pretty much carnivore.
Absolutely.
So I unfortunately am the type of person where even a little bit of carbs doesn't work for me. My blood sugar doesn't come down and I don't lose weight. So for me, I found being as close to zero carb as possible works best for my chemistry. So I am mostly carnivore. If anything, I might have a little bit of fermented cabbage every now and then. I do some macadamia nut oil, but other than that, and I do some dairy. I don't like to do a lot of dairy. And if I do have cheese, I do get goat cheese or raw, and as close to zero carb as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no, I mean, it would be, if I have more than 5 carbs a day, it's mostly zero carbs a day.
Now, there's two objections that I can just hear people throwing at you at this point is like, oh, okay, so how do you get all your vitamins and minerals in? So what's your response to that if somebody has to ask you? Where do they come from?
Um,
Because aren't you going to struggle with scurvy because you're not getting any, what's the story?
well, I eat mostly hoofed animals, so I usually eat lamb and beef. Mostly, I have some pork. I love my pork belly. It's a really
Yep.
good source of nice fat. Um, I do find the chronometer was instrumental of getting all my numbers right. And you see all the vitamins and everything you get in that beef and in the meat that I'm eating. I also do electrolytes, unflavored without the stevia. I don't do any sugar substitute.
Sweeteners. Yep.
Yeah, no
Mhm.
no sweeteners. So the zero unflavored is the one is the kind that I use.
Mhm.
Um, and in the beginning, I did miss the crunch of a salad because I do like that crunch. But now I'm so used to it that it doesn't faze me anymore.
Absolutely. And the other question is, isn't it boring?
For me, I find it liberating because it takes away the choice. It takes away any of the, oh, maybe I want to try that. Maybe I want to try that. It really is rather boring as far as, but for me, it's simplicity and it's actually makes the boring makes it easier for me. Like I know I eat, every time I go to the grocery store, I buy this, and this, and that's what I eat. And it's just so easy. For me, it's easier.
Yes,
And
definitely. Takes the
yeah,
noise
but
out of
for
it,
others,
doesn't it?
yeah, for some others, they'd be like, "There's no way I could do this." But for me, it's much easier.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you on that one. It definitely is easier. And the more you stress your metabolism to get into those further reaching areas of health and wellness, and do almost a fast mimicking diet, carnivore is a great way to go.
Yeah,
And dealing with those things like autoimmune conditions and healing. So where are you at with your diabetes? Whereabouts are you now? What's happened since then?
I no longer have diabetes. I am no longer on blood pressure medicine. The only medication I'm taking, which are supplements, is vitamin D, vitamin D and K. Um, and I take MCT oil every now and then. And that's about it. It's crazy.
So you're back to being
Um,
an all natural girl.
I used to take omegas, but I don't do that anymore. And I actually eat my sardines, and that's how I get my omegas. So, so no more
Anybody
supplements.
watching this might go, oh no, sardines, but they're
It
incredible,
took
aren't
me
they?
60 years to eat a sardine, and I have to say I love them now. I do like them.
Yes, so there is hope.
The other
Oh,
thing I do to stress, oh, I'm sorry, were you?
no, go. Yep.
So there are other things I do to stress my metabolism, and I think it helped me put me over the edge to lose more weight. Is I started with some sauna and fasting, and I also do a magnesium float once a week to help. Because in the beginning, I was getting some really bad cramping in my legs in the middle of the night. They would wake you up, and I no longer have that issue at all. And my
Absolutely.
magnesium
Yes.
level is great now.
That's fantastic, Lo. Do you take magnesium supplements as well? Do you
I do
drink?
not.
You do
Well,
not.
it's whatever's in my electrolytes. There, I think there is some
Oh,
magnesium
yeah,
in
yeah,
there,
yeah.
but yeah, but other than I don't take anything in additional other than my floats.
Alrighty. So floating, carnivore diet, electrolytes, obviously getting the magnesium through those electrolytes, keeping your fats up. You get that through your meat that you consume?
Yeah, and I mean I do eat extra fat, so I do goat butter. I make butter bites with goat butter. I also do some zero carb cheeses for fat. I take MCT oil for fat and also macadamia nut oil for fat.
Mm-hmm.
I check my chronometer. I'm like, oh, I'm a little low, and so I would take a teaspoon of macadamia nut oil to get my fat up.
Right. Okay. So where to from here? Where to from here?
Well, I have a big journey ahead of me because I've lost over 230 pounds and I have a lot of extra skin. And I am going to have I have a hernia. I have a very large hernia due to the weight pushing. And the doctor told me, "Oh, you're fine because your fat is holding in your intestines. And well, now I've lost a lot of weight, and it's now becoming a point where I need to get this fixed because the fat's not going to hold it in anymore. And I don't want it to all of a sudden become an emergency of where my intestines are falling out of the large hole. So with me having my hernia fixed, I'm going to have some extra skin removed also. So that's the next part of my journey.
That is both scary and exciting and amazing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. And what are you doing to prepare for that, except for the flights of stairs?
Yes. I'm always really good, but I mean being extra good because I have less than 50 days before surgery, and I just want to be as healthy as I can be going into surgery. And I'm just being really extra careful. I'm getting in a lot of good exercise and my fats.
Right. And are you bringing fasting? So fasting is coming into that?
Yes, I'm fasting every week. In our group, we've discussed different strategies. I used to do like a 72-hour water fast only. I've done sardine fast with only eating sardines for 3 days. And I've had really good results with eat one day, fast the next day, eat one day, fast the next day. And if you were to tell me 2 years ago I was going to go 72 hours without food, or you're only going to eat sardines for 72 hours, or you're only going to eat every other day, I would have thought you were lost your mind. I can honestly say I'm not hungry. I actually feel amazing when I'm doing it, and it's going to be a part of my life forever.
Yep, absolutely. It's like once you start doing that and you feel the benefits and you just feel the amazing energy and vitality and how you feel when you come out of a fast, you just never turn back.
Yep.
All right, Lo, thank you once again. As I say, I'm sorry we did a little bit of a pivot there because I just thought, oh my gosh,
okay.
I just have so much to ask and so many questions that this is going to require a follow-up in 6 months.
My pleasure.
Sure. For sure. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey because it's a big one. It's a big journey, but I think that what we've done today is given so much hope. You have given so much hope. Your story is so incredibly inspiring for those who have been or find themselves in a similar situation, to know that no matter how bleak the future looks, you can do this. You can absolutely do this. So do you have a final thought that you want to share with anyone out there? Just a final thought.
I'm living proof it can be done, and you're going to be so happy if you do it, because it took me all this time, but I'm now living my life finally and not dying in a chair.
Yeah. And here's to good health and life.
That's right.
Thank you, Lo. Thanks so much.
Thank you.